Hello everyone. On October 3, the special cell of the Delhi police raided the homes of around 46 journalists, editors, activists who were seemingly connected somehow to the online news portal NewsClick. Now, journalists like Abhisar Sharma and Bhasha Singh on that day had put up posts on social media, including historian Sohail Hashmi, saying that their electronic devices like their phones, their laptops, their hard drives had been taken away by the police. Now, the idea of search and seizure is nothing new. There are already two petitions before the Supreme Court, one by a group of academicians and one by a group of journalists who are talking about why they oppose this kind of an action. But the growing trend of search and seizure by police has raised questions among many people of what exactly are our rights when a police officer asks you for your phone? Do we have any rights? So, to understand what's going on over here and what you can and cannot do in these situations, we have today with us Radhika Roy from Internet Freedom Foundation. She's the Associate Litigation Counsel over there. Radhika, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me over here.
All right. So, Radhika, jumping right into it, can you just tell us, do we have rights in this situation? And if yes, what are the laws here per se? What can or cannot we do?
So, at the outset itself, like there are these two very basic fundamental rights that are available to us. One is the fundamental right to privacy, and the other is the fundamental right against self-incrimination. Now, the thing is that I have talked about this before as well, that our phones, they contain a lot of personal information, our communication, it could be privileged communication as well. So at this point of time, if someone does have access to our phones, be it for any reason whatsoever, they also have access to the communication that we have. Any pictures per se, or any information that may be slightly incriminating. It's pretty much akin to asking us if we have committed a crime or not. So in such cases, access to a phone leads to violation of these rights if that access is not done by due procedure of law. Now, apart from these fundamental rights, we have the Code of Criminal Procedure, which is basically the act which governs any procedure related to criminal law. Now, Section 91 of the code states that production of a document or other thing can be done if it is found to be necessary or desirable for purposes of investigation, inquiry, trial, or other proceedings. Now, this production can only be done if the court issues a summons or if the officer in charge of the police station issues a written order to the person in whose possession the document or thing is. The time as well as the place needs to be mentioned in that order. So the right that we do have in such cases when it comes to search and seizure is that if someone comes to us, if a police officer comes to us and asks for our documents or asks for our digital devices, we have the right to ask for the order which is authorizing them to do so.
So the order must contain where exactly this search and seizure will be done and for what reason. That specifically has to be seen in the order.
It has to be recorded in writing.
And the police officer, if they come to your home, they have to show that order in hand. Otherwise, you can refuse?
Yes, we can refuse.
Okay. And
now the thing is that there is a difference between if a phone is asked for you, because there have been a lot of instances which have cropped up that police officers are stopping people on the road itself and asking them for their phones. For instance, I think in Hyderabad or Bangalore, it had happened that people were stopped on the roads and they were being asked to give their phones so that chats could be seen, whether any conversations related to drug use was present or not. Now, in those cases, they cannot do that. They don't have the right to do that. But in reality, all they need to do is just give you a reason and you have to comply. So the same thing happens when they come to your home. If they have a warrant, if they have an order authorizing them, you have to comply. In the absence of an order, usually the right which does accrue to you is that you have the opportunity to go approach the court and challenge such actions on the ground that they're not according to the due process of law and they are invading your fundamental right of privacy. So lack of following a proper procedure equips you with the right to challenge in a writ.
Abhisar Sharma, in one of his videos after he was released by the Delhi police, he had mentioned how the police had taken away his laptop and phone, and he was sort of in a very helpless position of sorts when the device was taken away from him. So, is there like a time limit also related with within this time the police has to return these devices to you? Does that have to be specified anywhere, or is it specified anywhere?
There's no provision as to specification as to how long a person's devices or documents or things can be taken. It's
Okay.
unfortunate, but that is the case.
Mhm. And when we say electronic devices, it can be any device. The word is not specifically mentioned, you said, right, in the section. It comes under
So the
other.
section, so section says document or other things, but as things have progressed, like I said, all our information, all our communication is stored in our devices, in our phones, in our laptops. So the law has also progressed accordingly, and other things has come to mean your digital devices.
Okay. Is there anything we can do to make sure that our data within our phones is protected, even if someone does take away our phone, say by an order, and you want to challenge that order, but you also have some sensitive information in your device? Is there any way to protect that data?
So there are few things that a person can do if their phones or their devices are seized. So the first thing is that it's very, very important to have a strong password. Now, while biometrics give the impression of an added padding to our safety and security because they cannot be hacked per se, you need to keep in mind that biometrics cannot be changed, but a password can. So, of course, there are like vulnerabilities attached to both, but in my experience, people feel like they don't need to keep a strong password when they have biometrics involved. So, just don't do that. Just keep your password as strong as possible. I would, in fact, advise using a password manager as well for this. Another thing that you can do is that you can use two-factor authentication when it comes to your profiles, your social media profiles, or any app per se. Like I can't stress on how important it is to enable two-factor authentication. There are specific apps which also help in this regard, and this is a great way to dislodge high risks. Now, another thing, like if your device is present with another person, it's very important for you to encrypt your device as well as maintain encrypted backups. For messaging, I would suggest like use Signal and WhatsApp because there are disappearing messages available on both these platforms. Now, also ensure that your devices are like updated at all times. In fact, I think the committee to protect journalists has a comprehensive digital safety kit available in this regard. So that can also be accessed for you to understand how better to protect your devices. Now, as a journalist, like you always need to be wary of the harm that can be caused to you and your sources if your devices fall into the wrong hands. So just ensure that your personal data that is available on any website pertaining to you is either removed or has restricted access. So these are just like a few things that you can do to ensure that you remain protected, even though if your devices are in the hands of other people.
So you mentioned password and two-factor authentication, but so as a journalist who comes in front of a police officer who asks you to uh, give access to the phone, can you refuse? Like, say they want you to give you the password, or say the phone is on airplane mode or it's switched off, and they want you to turn it on. What are the yeses and nos that you can say to an officer in that kind of a situation?
So, you have no obligation whatsoever to switch on your phone and give it to the police officer. You are under no obligation whatsoever to give your password to the police officer. But when you look at it practically, you in those kind of situations, it's very hard to say no.
Mhm.
So I again, it depends on who you are and who you're dealing with, whether you can say yes or no in that kind of situation. So legally, technically, you can say no, but in a practical situation, it's pretty hard to do so.
If we want to approach the court to lodge a complaint, are there any things we need to keep in mind while filing the complaint?
So, I wasn't referring to a complaint, I was referring to a writ. So in a writ, what you can do is that you can challenge the action of the state on the basis of the fact that any of your fundamental rights have been infringed. And that's where this entire challenging the fact that your devices are being taken away without the procedure being followed comes in, because it gives you this impetus to, like, go to the court and say that they did not follow. So I just give this very basic background before I continue with this line. So in Puttaswamy, it said that, okay, fine, our right to privacy is it's a fundamental right, it's protected, but it's not absolute, in the sense that it can be restricted if if the action of the state is proportional in nature. Now, when it came to the proportionality doctrine, it said that now this proportionality doctrine has like a few aspects, in the sense that there has to be a law which allows this, and whenever this restriction does take place, it has to follow the procedure. Like, there has to be procedural safeguards. Now, if these procedural safeguards are not followed, then I can approach the court and say that, okay, fine, they invaded my privacy without following the proper procedure. It was not proportional at all.
Right, but for now, if you want to file the writ, you have to mention the details of what happened during that incident. Is there any
Yes.
other document or as such anything that we need to carry with us when you file that writ?
No, that's not required. You just need to mention the facts of the case. You need to mention how the facts, in the facts of the case, your rights were violated.
Okay, do we need to mention any officer's name or anything of the sort?
Yes, that will be included in the facts.
Okay, all right. Can you just
But
list?
then all of that depends on whether you have knowledge of the person who did that. But usually, like, you just have to make out that the act of the state was violative of your rights, of your fundamental rights.
Okay, all right. Is there anything else that you would want a person who faces a search and seizure situation to know legally?
I think we more or less covered what is required. But even before arriving at such a scenario, I would suggest, you keep your devices intact. You ensure that the kind of information that is available on your devices is such that it does not incriminate you, because these instances are increasing, and it's very hard to, like, find in an ideal world you can probably, like, password protect it and you can ensure there's encryption, but when actual things happen, it's very hard to say no to a police officer, and it's very easy for them to get access to very detailed and personal information on your phones. So I would say keep better check on the devices that you have and ensure that they're protected.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Radhika, for speaking with us. And for our listeners, thank you for joining us. I hope this explainer helped in understanding what you can do in case of a search and seizure situation. For more information on what happens in this relating to this topic, do keep watching MediaNama. Thank you.